Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 8th, forget what month it is, August 8th, 2024 regular meeting of the Kern County Planning Commission. I'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ashley?
Here.
Commissioner Dunbar? Commissioner Nance?
Here.
Commissioner Oliver?
Here.
Commissioner Skidmore? Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Ms. Slayton? Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, next item on our agenda is commission member announcement or reports. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of minutes from July 25th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote. Oh, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is cases withdrawn or requests for continuance. We have none that fit that category this evening. So we will move on now. No consent items. We will move on to public presentations. Portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on the agenda and over which the commission has jurisdiction. Anyone want to present to us this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the item that everyone is here for, and that is public hearings. We have one case. Mr. Murphy, will you cover that one for us, please?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we go forward with our presentation, I would ask, we have Spanish translation available today, so if Mr. Fernando Lopez can come down and provides a summary in terms of how people can take advantage of that if they so choose.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
Buenas tardes. La Comisión de Planificación del Condado de Kern me ha contratado para interpretar esta reunión. Atrás o en la entrada hay una mesa donde hay audífonos si hay una persona que necesita audífonos para poder participar. Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
All right, and Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'd actually like to turn it over at this time to Ms. Katrina Slayton. Ms. Slayton will be giving today's presentation.
Good evening, commissioners. I have here with me tonight Ms. Janice Mays. She's actually the staff planner for this project. She's going to be helping with some of the presentation materials. So the project before your commission tonight is the Clean Harbors Waste Management Solid Waste Disposal Project by the Clean Harbors Buttonwillow LLC Group. The Clean Harbors Buttonwillow Solid Waste Disposal Facility is an existing hazardous and non-hazardous, non-municipal solid waste disposal facility that has been in operation, permitted to be in operation since 1983. The facility is currently located on 320 acres at on the northern side of Low Kern Road, approximately 8 miles west of Buttonwillow, between State Routes 33 and 58, as you can see on the map here. The proposed project includes the construction and operation of additional non-hazardous waste disposal units and additional on-site ancillary buildings within the current 320-acre permitted facility boundary, and also the inclusion of an additional 320 acres to the east of the currently permitted facility boundary to provide a landfill buffer area that will accommodate the soil stockpile area from the excess soils during the proposed construction activities for the non-hazardous waste units. So I want to mention that in addition to the land use actions requested of the county, the CEQA Environmental Impact Report that is lovely displayed up here on the dais, prepared for this project, also analyzed the renewal of the facility's hazardous waste facility permit, which is issued by the State Department of Substance and Toxics Control, otherwise known as DTSC. Be advised that the DTSC permit process is a completely separate and independent action from the county. However, the renewal of their permit was analyzed within this EIR for their future use and consideration. And if you have any questions on their process or what they might be considering, DTSC members are here tonight to answer any questions you might have if necessary. So again, I stress that the project does not propose an expansion of or additional hazardous waste capacity or any changes to the currently permitted waste streams. So the project is zoned A, exclusive agriculture, and has a land use designation of 3.4 on the existing 320-acre permitted facility boundary and 8.3 on the eastern proposed landfill buffer area. The site is bordered to the north by agricultural land, historically developed as pistachios and alfalfa, to the west, south, and east by oil production and undeveloped land. The nearest sensitive receptors are residential dwellings located about 2.5 miles northeast of the facility site. So as outlined in the agenda, the actions before your commission tonight include the following. An amendment to the land use, open space, and conservation element of the Kern County General Plan from the existing 8.3 land use designation to a 3.4 for the solid waste disposal facility designation for the proposed 320-acre eastern buffer area, and an amendment to the General Plan Appendix E map that currently is titled Petroleum Waste Management, which was the previous owner of this facility, to show the current Clean Harbors name and a revised permitted facility boundary with a designated buffer property. That was a lot. Next is a change in zone classification from the A, exclusive agriculture, to the M3, heavy industrial zone classification or more restrictive district on the entire 640-acre facility. A modification to the existing conditional use permit, number 4, map 97, to include an increase in the permitted facility boundary from the 320 acres to 640 acres to account for the expansion of the buffer parcel area. An increase in permitted disposal area from 160 acres to 193.3 acres for the addition of the non-hazardous waste landfill units within the existing facility boundary. An increase in the permitted disposal capacity from 13,250,000 cubic yards to 16,674,000 cubic yards for that additional non-hazardous waste. That would be placed in the additional non-hazardous waste landfill units within the existing permitted facility boundary. And the construction of 4 new hazardous waste treatment buildings to support the modifications proposed in the hazardous waste facility permit renewal application filed with DTSC. And the construction of 1 latex paint building within the permitted facility boundary. And last, an exclusion of the entire 640-acre project area from the agricultural preserve number 2 boundaries. So again, a complete listing of the requested actions is provided on pages 5 and 6 of your staff report if you need to look back at those. So with respect to your commission's jurisdiction on land use, the portion of the project before you is limited to these Kern County land use actions that I just outlined. Again, DTSC will utilize the environmental impact report prepared for the proposed project when considering the renewed authorization of their hazardous waste facility permit for the existing facility and operations, with the following modifications as requested by DTSC. They would like the reclassification of the 4 existing tank units to miscellaneous units, the construction and operation of those 4 tank treatment buildings that I previously mentioned are being proposed for the CUP, where hazardous waste treatment will be conducted in reorganized operations to include those new tank treatment buildings, and the addition of environmental monitoring programs consistent with current regulatory standards. Again, the proposed project does not include an increase in any hazardous waste disposal capacity or permitted waste streams. So the waste to be accepted in the proposed non-hazardous waste management units will be restricted to the current permitted non-hazardous waste types, which consist of non-putrescible, solid, and semi-solid waste, including ashes, industrial waste, demolition and construction waste, and waste from fire and natural disaster cleanups as allowed by law. The site is currently authorized to accept 4,050 tons per day of combined hazardous and non-hazardous waste types. The proposed non-hazardous waste management units are anticipated to accept a maximum of an additional 4,050 tons per day, with an expected average of approximately 1,000 tons per day. Therefore, the daily limit for the facility would conservatively be 8,100 tons per day, but likely much less, with a limit of the 4,050 tons per day on the hazardous waste. Approval of the additional non-hazardous waste landfill units may also increase non-hazardous waste truck trips. Sorry about that. The on-site construction workforce for the project is expected to average from 8 to 35 personnel daily during the 7-month construction period of the non-hazardous waste landfill units, 8 to 65 personnel daily over the 1-year construction period of the 4 hazardous treatment buildings, and 6 to 10 personnel for the 3 to 9-month construction of the paint recycling building. Once constructed, it's anticipated the project will require 2 additional full-time personnel for site operations, maintenance, environmental controls, records, emergency, health and safety, those kinds of things. So water during both the construction and operation periods is expected to be drawn from the existing on-site water well. As stated earlier, an environmental impact report was prepared for this project in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. A public workshop was held during the 45-day public review period of the EIR at the Buttonwillow Recreation and Parks District with on-site Spanish translators to provide information on the structure and content of the EIR and to provide information on how to comment. Staff did receive 9 comment letters on the EIR, which have been addressed in the Volume 3, Chapter 7 response to comments of the EIR. An additional comment letter was received after the preparation of the response to comments document from the Green Action for Health and Environmental Justice, and that comment was responded to in your staff report. So pages 9 through 25 of your staff report detail the entire environmental review process, and all volumes of the EIR have been posted on the State Clearinghouse website as well as the Planning Department website and provided to your commission. So while most of the project impacts can be reduced to less insignificant levels with the implementation of the required mitigation measures outlined in the attached mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program, staff has determined that implementation of the project would result in significant and unavoidable project and cumulative impacts to air quality. The final EIR contains 37 mitigation measures to reduce project and cumulative impacts associated with the project to the greatest extent feasible. The mitigation monitoring and reporting program lists all of the required mitigation measures and is attached as Exhibit C to your staff report for your review and consideration, along with the recommended findings in Exhibits A and B. During processing this request, staff did notify all affected agencies, county departments, property owners within 1,000 feet, and other interested parties that requested such notice of tonight's hearing. So as a result of that notification, we did receive 6 additional letters. Letters from the Kern County Public Works Department and the Kern County Superintendent of Schools were similar in content to comments received during the 45-day circulation period for the EIR and have already been addressed in that response to comments document. PG&E and Kern County Environmental Health both provided no comment letters. Southern California Gas Company provided a comment stating that they don't operate any transmission facilities in the area, but they recommend that the distribution department be contacted to ensure no conflict, and as such, a condition of approval has been included in your draft resolutions. Last, a member of the public, Mr. Mark Paula, whose mailing address is in the Stockdale area of Bakersfield, expressed objection to the project and states that it discriminates against the low-income Hispanic population of the Buttonwillow residents. These comments have been addressed in the staff report and are attached. The comment letters are attached for your reference. I would like to make your commission aware that should the Kern County portion of this project not be approved, meaning the non-hazardous waste capacity not be expanded and the buffer area not be permitted, the proposed ancillary buildings not be constructed, that Clean Harbors is an existing facility and it may continue to receive waste within the existing permitted facility area at the current rates in accordance with the conditions of the existing conditional use permit until that facility reaches its permitted capacity, which is estimated to be around the year 2040. DTSC may continue to separately consider their action of renewing the hazardous waste facility permit if that were to be the case. So staff has reviewed the project in its entirety and notes the following to support a recommendation of approval. It is our opinion that the project is sited in a location favorable to the expansion of an existing solid waste disposal facility due to the existing site access and utilities and the lack of dense urban development. Approval of the project would provide additional non-hazardous, non-municipal waste disposal capacity to serve the county's future growth and development. Approval of the project would preserve hazardous waste disposal capacity within the county. The project is one of a very limited number of facilities in the region that can safely dispose of this hazardous waste. Without project, the hazardous waste stream within the county would be displaced elsewhere, likely at a greater distance and with greater environmental impacts. The project would support the economic development of Kern County by generating the jobs previously discussed. And the project is consistent with the goals and policies of the Kern County General Plan, and staff believes that your commission can make all of the required findings necessary to recommend approval of the requested land use actions. So therefore, the department recommendation is to advise the Planning Commission to recommend the Board of Supervisors certify the environmental impact report, adopt the Section 15091 findings of fact and Section 15093 statement of overriding considerations, adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, approve an amendment to the land use conservation and open space element and Appendix E map of the Kern County General Plan as requested, enact ordinance and adopt a resolution approving the zone change as requested, approve the modification to the conditional use permit subject to the recommended conditions, approve the exclusion from the boundaries of agricultural preserve number 2, and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the attached draft resolutions. This completes my presentation tonight. Representatives of the DTSC are here available to answer any questions that your commission might have regarding their separate process. And the applicant is also in attendance and has a presentation for your commission when you are ready. And a handout with the applicant's presentation translated into Spanish is available in the back of the room for anybody who might like a copy.
Thank you, Ms. Layton. Would the project proponent like to come forward, speak on behalf of the project, or make a presentation? If I could ask you to state your name for the record and spell your last name, please.
My name is Jose Lozano.
Do you mind spelling that for our clerk, please?
Jose Lozano, Lozano.
Thank you, Mr. Lozano. Whenever you're ready.
Alrighty. Well, good evening, fellow board members. My name is Jose Lozano. I am the Environmental Compliance Manager for Clean Harbors Button Willow. We have a presentation for you guys today. Oh, gotcha. Alrighty. So today we're going to be going over Clean Harbors Button Willow's facility information, quick overview. We're going to go over some of our permits. We're going to go over how we manage our waste and some updates to our permit renewal. Clean Harbors has operated in Button Willow since 2002. We are located 8 miles west of Button Willow, and we occupy 320 acres. Clean Harbors Button Willow is a hazardous waste facility permitted to treat, store, and dispose of various hazardous and non-hazardous wastes. Treatment methods reduce toxicity of waste materials and make it suitable for disposal at our facility. We have a history of operating safely and compliantly with our team that is very diligent, and we provide safe jobs for dozens of employees from local areas. Next slide. Here on the screen, you can see a site map. There with the star, you can see our hazardous facility. We are located, again, 8 miles west of Button Willow, and we could see Button Willow on that right side. And that overview map you see on the right side of this screen, that is our acreage of our facility. Next slide. Permit overview. Here, our environmental impact report is not one of our permits. That was a typo, so I do apologize for that. But we had conducted our environmental impact report in July 2022 by the Kern County Planning and Natural Resource Department. And we conducted this in order to get our conditional use permit, which was granted December 16, 2014 by Kern County Board of Supervisors. And in order for us to get our hazardous waste facility permit, we have to also get our conditional use permit. We have submitted the application for our hazardous waste facility permit on October 1st, 2005, and it is currently still pending by the Department of Toxic Substance Controls. Talking about managing our waste, first and foremost is the transportation. Waste is transported via trucks in both containers such as drums, super stacks, and tri-wall boxes, and bulk shipment like vacuum trucks, dump trucks, and roll-off bins. Then we have our waste analysis plan. Outlined our pre-qualifications and an on-site acceptance analysis requirement by the customer who is transporting to our facility. Buttonwillow's facility can accept hazardous and non-hazardous for treatment, storage, and/or disposal. Pre-qualifications from our waste analysis plan include waste material profile sheets that must be submitted to and approved by Clean Harbors prior to them coming onto our facility and being shipped. Once waste materials is accepted by Clean Harbors for treatment and disposal, information becomes part of a permanent record in Generator's file, and the waste may be scheduled for shipment to our facility. A very important part about our transport is that we always ensure to tell our customers never to go through routes through the Buttonwillow town. Then the process goes into our on-site analysis and acceptance. A sample is taken from each shipment and compared to our pre-qualification sample that was approved by us before shipment. If analysis differs significantly, waste will be deemed non-conforming. At this point in time, all non-conforming waste are further analyzed to determine the best treatment alternatives, whether managed on-site or shipped to an alternative treatment facility. The customer is always contacting regarding any non-conformity waste and is given the option for alternative handling or return of the waste. Our active permitted waste management units, we have our landfill 35, which is 2 operating hazardous waste landfills. We have our non-hazardous surface impoundment, which contains bulk non-hazardous liquid waste. We have our stabilization treatment unit, and we have our drum handling and storage area. With our landfill operations, we always complete a waste acceptance process. Our drivers proceed to locations specified by truck receiving for offloading, so the drivers are always directed to the specific location of where they have to offload the waste. Field personnel directs trucks to the proper location of the offloading, and once offloading is complete, earth-moving equipment moves and compacts the waste for final disposal locations. At the end of each workday, landfill is covered with soil or foam to reduce emissions and prevent wind dispersion. I want to go over a little bit about our modifications to the conditional use permit. So starting, we are wanting to increase in our permitted facility boundaries from 320 acres to 640 acres to include the expansion parcel for our soil stockpile area. The added acreage is not going to be for hazardous waste. It is going to be specifically for our soil stockpile area. Next, we have increase in permit disposal area from 160 acres to 193.3 acres for the addition of our non-hazardous waste landfill units, WMU 36, 37, and 38, within the already existing 320 acres of the facility. Increased in permitting disposal capacity from 13,250,000 cubic yards to 16,674,000 cubic yards. For addition of non-hazardous waste landfill units, WMUs 36, 37, and 38 within the existing facility boundary. Construction of our new hazardous waste treatment building, our tank treatment building to support modifications proposed in a hazardous waste facility permit renewal application. Any questions?
I don't have any questions right now, Mr. Lozano, but we may ask you to come back up to do the proceedings if you don't mind.
Thank you.
I may have a couple of questions for you later, but
Okay, you got it, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, at this point, we will open our public comment portion. So guys, come down, whoever wants to speak for and against, and then we can, if you don't mind, state your name for the record, spell your last name, and we're going to set a timer for 2 minutes per speaker. So you're now free to do so. Come on down, sir.
Thank you. My name is Albert Ghilarducci, Ghilarducci. Ghilarducci.
Thank you, sir.
I have a lot of concerns about the facility, have for years. Many, many years ago, we used to have a lot of meetings in Buttonwillow. It wasn't Clean Harbors then, but from McKittrick Mud to where it's at now, it's changed over many. I still have to remark on one thing because you talked about in 2040, if nothing happens, they'll be closed. Probably over 20 years ago, I remember sitting in a meeting, I wish I could remember the day, when they said, in 10 years from now, we're going to be all filled up and expanded and we'll be out. I see that never happen. So I don't know when it never changes. I mean, the expansion and stuff, and I feel like we've been told this and told that, and a lot of it doesn't come avail. But anyway, being I live in Buttonwillow and have my whole life, and I don't know anybody in this room, I haven't looked behind me, if anybody can claim the fact that they live in Buttonwillow 24/7 as myself, but that makes a difference, when you live somewhere else. Sometimes you don't really worry about what happens in somebody else's backyard, and that's just a thought. Anyhow, a lot of concerns I have too is just the traffic now, the traffic increase. I see it every day. I farm out there. I see it. I live with it. I worry about, they're in a 100-year flood zone. They've known this for years. The worry about spills and containment that really hasn't been proven. When they say we have a 100-year tarp that's guaranteed, how would you say that when we haven't even been there 100 years? Just stuff like that we've had to put up in here over all the time period. And as far as aesthetic value, believe me, I sometimes enjoy looking at I have to say, I enjoy looking at the Timber Range. It's beautiful, especially at sunset. And then my eyes come down and see this plant, this facility. Trust me, there's nothing pretty to look at. Aesthetically value, it's not. I just want to voice my concerns. Thank you for allowing me to say this. And we'll just have to see what happens. I probably stepping out of line by saying this, but I feel the state needs a place to dump, so we're fighting against the state. The county needs the money, so we're kind of fighting against the county because they would love any extra income. And I apologize, but that's my personal concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ghilarducci. Okay, next. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll turn it to the commissioners for their comments or questions.
Mr. Jose Lozano, is that what it is? Can I have you come back down here real quick? So, I mean, you're looking at changing this up from an agricultural, which you've been running for 30 years almost, to an M3, which is a heavy industrial. Explain to me why.
At this moment, we have our Director of Environmental Compliance, Jared Torstensen. If I could direct the question to
Sure,
him.
have him come on down.
Hello. Jared Torstensen. Last name is spelled Torstenson. And I'm the Director of Compliance, Environmental Compliance for Clean Harbors landfills.
Fantastic, sir. I'm a planning commissioner as well as a real estate broker.
Okay.
I run a number of businesses here as well as on the coast, and I've worked a lot with environmental waste as well.
Sure.
So I want to know why you're wanting to change from an agriculture, which you've been running for 30 years already, as is, to an M3, which is heavy industrial, which you can do a lot more in that zoning.
So the additional land being added to the permitted area on the eastern side of the facility We didn't operate any kind of agricultural operations there. That is how it was zoned. We're looking to add space for a soil stockpile, not for waste at all. And that will help us in our future construction efforts for permitted waste cells and also for daily cover of the waste. We've owned the land for a number of years. I'm not sure exactly when it was acquired, but that's the plan, is just to have a place to store this clean soil for various uses at the
Okay.
facility.
What type of hazardous waste are you doing now?
What type? Various waste streams, many different kinds of
Specifically?
industrial wastes. We receive a lot of non-hazardous wastes, honestly, are the biggest portion of our waste stream.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the non-hazardous.
Okay. Maybe I should ask Mariana Boney, who's our facility general manager.
Have her come on
to
down.
cover some of
We'll
the-
have a group discussion
Cover
here.
some of the operational questions.
Mr. Chairman, can I provide a response real quick to the commission? Just for benefit of kind of summarizing some of this stuff. If you turn to page 4 of your staff report, page 4 is the approved CUP that lists all of the hazardous waste and the non-hazardous waste that are accepted.
No, I understand that, sir, but what I'm asking for is they're wanting to expand right now into a heavy industrial right now,
So-
which will expand it into additional things that they
It will
can
not.
do.
It will not, and that's why I want to make sure I provide some of this clarification. So the zoning change is because staff indicated that a zone change was needed. It was permitted back when it started, it was A-zoned. We would, generally would say, no, this should be an industrial zone designation. So the existing use is there. For purposes of consistency, we recommended that they change that zoning to the heavy industrial. In terms of what they're allowed to take, this will not change at all. Tonight's action, whether it's approved or denied, will not have any impact or change in terms of what waste streams can or cannot be accepted. That was already decided, and they're not proposing any changes for that tonight. The actions that we're considering are the expansion of the site for the stockpiling of two new buildings that are located on site, things from that perspective. The actual allowance to, the land use has already been established. They're allowed to take hazardous waste. What happens then is that the state will have to renew their permit if they want to allow that to occur. We don't have any control at this point any further, as it's an existing CUP that's allowed to
We
take
do
those
have
wastes.
control in regards to the zoning, from the agriculture to M3.
If they didn't do the zoning, then it would stay, they would still be allowed to do it. Again, the zone change was identified by staff just because this is what the facility is, so we think the underlying zoning should match it. So that was identified by staff. It's an existing facility. If we don't change the zoning, they can still operate and still do everything along those lines. The actions today, the requested modifications to the CUP would not change anything about what can or cannot come in. It would change the overall life of the landfill. It would change the boundaries to where there is some area that they own already that they can't stockpile. They're hoping to stockpile in those areas. But those are the actions that are before us. I just want to, because this is a little bit unique,
understand.
the facility is operational. And even if everything was denied today, they would continue to be able to operate as they were.
I'm not worried about operating today. I understand what they do. I'm okay with what they do currently. What my concern is what's going to go on in the future with an M3 land, and that's what I want to hear about. So the M3, versus agriculture with an M3, you can do a lot more with an M3 zone property than you can within an agricultural land. And some of their conditional use permits. And I want to know, basically, they're wanting to build additional drum storages, which is fine. How is that going to factor in regards to the water table and stuff like that? And I'm sure you can speak to that.
I'll try. My name's Mariana Boney. My last name is spelled B-U-O-N-I. Not easy to get it from the pronunciation.
Thank you.
I'm the general manager of the facility, and as was just stated, we're not planning to change the waste that we take today, the zone designations, merely because we're not agriculture. That's pretty much it. You asked a question earlier, I think to Jose, like, what are we taking now? Our biggest waste stream that we take today is contaminated soil from Caltrans. If you're as old as me, you remember leaded gasoline. and that's aerially deposited lead on the side of the road.
I do, and I have a list of them here, so I'm okay with that.
Okay. And we've taken historically waste from refineries and the oil field folks. We also take waste from other industries that meet the California hazardous criteria. We can also treat some federally regulated waste through our treatment plant, which is the tank treatment buildings we propose to build. And we propose to build those because the current treatment facility that we have is old and needs to be updated, and that will provide a safer treatment for the community.
That's where I was wanting to go. What kind of safety factors are we putting in place?
Yes, so
on it?
everything will be done in a building with a large bag house. Dust should be, I always say eliminated, but dust is like baby powder, right? But it should be much more safe, secure than what we do today.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Bonnie.
No more questions?
Commissioner Nance?
So, Mr. Lozano, you spoke on, when you were showing the slides earlier, you had one slide that you'd put up, I believe it was a federal entity, but you were saying you had a permit that you had submitted or what have you, but it still hasn't, it was still pending. Can you explain that to us?
From the Department of Toxic Substance Controls?
Yeah.
Yes. Chair Torsten?
Sorry. So the way the permitting process works is as long as the facility submits an application for renewal in a timely fashion, which is at least 180 days prior to expiration of the permit, the current permit stays in place. And so for a number of reasons, I think, that predate my time with the company, the approval of that permit that was applied for in 2005 has been on hold. And the issuance of this new conditional use permit from Kern County is one of the steps that we need to get in place in order for DTSC to take the action of approving the renewed permit.
So did you have a permit prior to 2005 that was approved?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
you're operating off of that.
The 2005 version was the most recent one that was approved.
So
Yes.
we're waiting for a conditional use permit to get a permit.
I'm sorry, to provide some clarification. I believe that statement was not quite as accurate as it could be. They needed original land use approval to have this type of facility and to take the hazardous waste.
Yeah.
That has been done.
Okay.
That's in place. The state has to issue their own hazardous waste permit to allow that. The CUP is already, there it is. If the county wasn't doing anything, DTSC could have processed an environmental document and renewed their permit if they so chose. What is happening, though, is the applicant wanted to do some other things associated with the facility that were not necessarily hazardous waste. They wanted to do some non-hazardous waste. They wanted to have some different buildings. We were preparing an environmental impact report. Because we were moving forward with an environmental impact report, DTSC requested the county, and because we knew that it was an ongoing permit, to include that in our environmental analysis. So the EIR describes the actions that DTSC will have to take. But there is nothing, if you deny everything, if we don't do anything, DTSC can use an environmental document and consider the renewal of the permit on themselves. So they are two separate processes and they're two separate applications. But because we were moving forward with the request to modify the site, and because we knew there were multiple applications, one with a different agency, all of it was included in the environmental analysis. But again, that if we don't do anything or if it's not done, DTSC can still go through their own independent process and decide to renew their hazardous permit. It's similar to, basically, they're a responsible agency. The land use has already been granted for that. Now they have to decide whether or not they agree and want to authorize the renewal of the permit. So again, it's a little bit confusing because it's discussed as the project as a whole, but those are the actions that your commission actually doesn't have any jurisdiction over today. That DTSC permit is already active. Sorry, the authorization to accept hazardous waste is already active. The question will then come when DTSC decides to either renew or not renew the permit. But the actions that we have before us today go along, and again, a lot of what we're proposing are non-hazardous things. It's basically a landfill that they're wanting to expand the amount of tonnage that can go in it, expand the boundaries because they want to have an area to stockpile. So again, it's two separate projects that were analyzed together in an environmental impact report, but considered differently in terms of that. So they do not need anything from the county, from a CUP, to continue to work with their DTSC permit. But because we were analyzing it, we did one EIR that looked at all of it instead of doing two separate EIRs and having each jurisdiction do it on its own. So that's kind of just, it's a little bit unique in this particular project versus other projects that we have come before where, years ago, yes, they needed to go through an environmental impact report to do
So you want to tell me,
that.
basically, we're doing all this and you're wasting our time up here because they don't need a CUP to be approved for them to go ahead and go forward. Is that what you're telling us?
They've already gotten the CUP to have hazardous waste. What we're doing now is that needs to go through an environmental review. CEQA requires that if you have multiple projects, that you try to combine them as possibly, because there's cumulative impacts, there's things along those lines. And so because we were moving forward with their other components of their project that we do have jurisdiction over, we did an EIR that looked at our stuff, and then we also, at the request of DTSC, analyzed their permit in our document. So what would happen, once this project is completed from the county's perspective, however it goes forward, as a responsible agency, DTSC will utilize the environmental analysis and make a decision on their own. It's very similar to, think of an incidental take permit. We go through a process. We don't have any jurisdiction to give an incidental take permit. We authorize the land use, which again, in this case, we've already authorized it. And then the federal or the state agency will then utilize the environmental analysis that's prepared and make a decision on their permit. So I wouldn't say it's wasted. We had to go through the analysis to look at the project as a whole, and there are a number of components which we've identified in our staff report that they are requesting that are outside just the hazardous permit component of it. That's just one component of a larger project.
All right, thank you.
And I appreciate having more information than less, so thank
Yeah,
you.
no,
Thank you, Ms.
absolutely.
Murphy. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's
thank you.
just-
I
it's-
apologize for stating the situation.
And thank you, for some of that additional information as well as from you gentlemen. It's just, I know my concern right now, I've done a lot of work out in Buttonwillow, and I'm really concerned for the citizens out there in regards to expanding this. And I'm having a really hard time wanting to approve an expansion. Do we have it now? Do you have your CUP? Absolutely. But expanding this up and affecting, or possibly affecting a community that's only a couple miles away. And that's what I'm still trying to digest. So just trying to figure out where I'm from there.
Commissioner Miller, through the chair, I have some things to just offer as part of your ongoing deliberations. The first thing I would just, because I know that traffic was mentioned, I do want to be clear that we do have a condition, I believe it was condition 36, I just had it marked. There are very specific routes that must be taken when it comes to hazardous materials. So the hazardous materials do not drive specifically along Buttonwillow through the community. When it comes to the hazardous waste, again, from previous approvals, there are very specific routes that must be taken in terms of where that hazardous waste goes to and from. If you are concerned, and I understand your question in terms of, well, this particular use will not change, it would have a new zone designation of M3, and who knows what happens 5, 10, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, and M3 zoning is different than an A zone, so once this facility closes and things along those lines. I believe that we advertised a zone change to M3. If your commission is worried about potentially future things not accessory to the landfill, but a different type of industry coming on property zoned M3, it could be appropriate if your commission wants to recommend that it be M3 PD. So at the very least in that perspective, they would not be able to just come in over-the-counter building permits to establish a new use on property that is designated heavy industrial, but that would be required, whatever that new use would be, to go through some sort of public hearing process, which may or may not require a new environmental analysis, things along those lines, to look at what that change of use would be. So if that is something, if your commission is concerned about, it is completely within the rights in terms of it's more restrictive than the M3 zoning. You could recommend that the zone change be changed to M3 PD. So at least that allows an extra layer of protection in terms of any different uses which may or may not be proposed or thought of on the facility at a later date that are not associated with this CUP. So that would something to think about as well, if that is one of the concerns.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so what you guys thinking? I am very familiar with this facility, its history. Know people have worked there over the years. It does provide a service to the local oil industry, as you guys know.
Absolutely.
So, you know, non-hazardous tank bottoms, hazardous tank bottoms, things like that, just day-to-day oil field waste goes there. That's useful for the vitality of the county, I believe. So I understand the reason for zoning compatibility, and I think, Mr. Murphy, your discussion about precise development overlay for that is, if that's your concern, it's a good way to make sure that's kind of limited and kind of fenced in, so to speak, if that'd make you feel better, but.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Mr. Murphy, for giving us the additional information for our decisions. I think the Clean Harbors folks as well. Like I said, I know that I've worked a lot with the community in Buttonwillow. I am concerned, and I want to protect them as well. I think that the Clean Harbors does provide a very, very good service and a needed service for our community and for our county. And I do support in the actions that they do out there, even though I was a little hard on you guys tonight. But what I would like to do is actually make a motion to go forward with this, but with the additional modification of, and the protection for our community to be able to do with an M3 PD.
Commissioner Oliver, I can happily read a whole revised resolution or recommendation, but basically what you're asking is when we talk to the zone change, it would be changed to enact ordinance and adopt resolution approving the zone change to the more restrictive M3 PD district. And then you would continue to go approve modification of CUP, and so that would be the change, is we would add that specific language
Yes,
as
I
part of the
agree.
overall recommendation.
Correct.
in your
That gives
motion.
that extra layer of protection for the community there as well.
It does. That would mean that if anything was ever proposed on that site that was different, it would have to go through a complete PD process, which would allow a completely separate review to determine whether or not it's appropriate, compatibility, everything along those lines.
Correct. Thank you. So move.
I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Three ayes, two absent, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Since this is a recommendation, I don't think it has a right to appeal at this point.
It does not, and just because of people that are interested and that may be watching at home as well, it will be scheduled for final consideration at the Board of Supervisors with your commission's recommendation. New public hearing notices will be mailed out that advertises when that date will occur, and if anyone has any clarifications, they're welcome to contact staff. But again, new hearing notices will go out that advertise the date that the item will be considered by the Kern County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Okay, that brings us to item H on the agenda, which is adjournment. And so our next planning commission is scheduled now for August 22nd, 24. I hereby declare the meeting adjourned.